Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Comey, I've always appreciated your testimony before this committee, and I respect the work that you do for the FBI. When you made your recommendations to the Department of Justice to not prosecute Hillary Clinton, I actually disagreed with your decision, but I appreciated your candor in explaining to the American people and to us those recommendations. Since that decision, I continue to view you as honorable and a strong leader for the critical federal agency. In fact, I did 20 town hall meetings over the recess, and I was lambasted at every one of them. In fact, I think I lost votes because I defended your integrity at every one of those town hall meetings. And I told them why, even though I disagreed with your conclusions, I thought you came to it from an honorable place. However, as more information has come to light, I question the thoroughness, and I'm not questioning your integrity, but the thoroughness and the scope of the FBI's investigation. In the past week, we have learned of the grants of immunity to several key witnesses in the Clinton investigation, including Hillary Clinton's former chief of staff and one of the individuals responsible for setting up her server. I'm really disappointed by this revelation and confused as to why these immunity grants were necessary and appropriate given the circumstances. It appears to me that the FBI was very early in this investigation too willing to strike deals and ensure that top officials could never be prosecuted for their role in what we now know was a massive breach of national security protocol. We have a duty to ensure that our FBI is still in the business of investigating criminal activity. So at what point in the investigation was Cheryl Mills offered immunity?
Cheryl Mills was never offered immunity, not to quibble, but she was given letter immunity to govern.
At what point?
June of 2016, so June of this year, so about 11 months into the investigation.
So, and to be clear, was she offered immunity for interview and potential testimony or for turning over the laptop as evidence?
Turning over the laptop as evidence, it governed what could be done in terms of using it against her, that laptop.
To your knowledge, was Cheryl Mills an uncooperative witness prior to the immunity deal?
I think our assessment was she was cooperative. I forget the month she was interviewed, but she was interviewed fully before that.
And she always cooperated?
I think our assessment was, again, this is the odd way I look at the world, we had no reason to believe she was being uncooperative.
So could this investigation have been completed without these grants of immunity in place?
In my view, it couldn't be concluded professionally without doing our best to figure out what was on those laptops. So getting the laptops was very important to me and to the investigative team.
So in your vast experience as an investigator, as a DOJ attorney, now as an FBI director, how many times have you allowed a person who is a material witness to a crime you're investigating to act as the lawyer in that same investigation?
Well, to let is what I'm stumbling on. The FBI has no power to stop someone in a voluntary interview.
You're speaking, let's just be honest. The FBI allowed Cheryl Mills to act as the attorney in a case that she was a material witness. How many times have you done that?
In the same sense that I'm allowing you to question me.
How many times have you done that?
I can't stop you from questioning me.
How many times have you done that prior?
I have not had an experience where the subject of the interview was represented by a lawyer who was also a witness in the investigation.
Okay, so you have never had that experience?
Not in my experience.
You prosecuted terrorists and mobsters, right?
Correct.
And during your time in justice, how many times did you allow a lawyer who was a material witness to the case that you were prosecuting to also act as the subject of, as the attorney to the subject of that investigation?
Yeah, as I said, I don't think I've encountered this situation where a witness, a lawyer for the subject of the investigation was also a witness of the investigation.
So this was highly unusual to have?
In my experience, yes.
Okay. In your answer to Chairman Chaffetz, you indicated that you had no reason to disbelieve Paul Combetta when he told you that he erased a hard drive on his own. Is that correct?
Correct.
However, in the exchange on Reddit, he said, I need to strip out a VIP's email address from a bunch of archived email. Basically, they don't want the VIP's email address exposed to anyone. Those two statements are not consistent. How can you say that he was truthful when he told you nobody told him to act this way, but yet you saw this Reddit account that says where they told him that he needed to act in this way?
I think the assessment of the investigative team is those are about two different subjects. One is a year before about in the summer of 2014 about how to produce emails and whether there's a way to remove or mask the actual email address, the HRC, whatever it is, .com, and the other is about actually deleting the content of those emails sitting on the server.
It seems like in your investigation you found time after time evidence of destruction, evidence of breaking iPhones and other phones, all these different things, but yet you find that there's no evidence of intent. And I'm a little bit confused as to your interpretation of 18 U.S.C. 793F. On the one hand, you've said that Secretary Clinton couldn't be charged because her conduct was extremely careless, but not grossly negligent, correct?
That's not exactly what I said.
That's what you said today. But you've also said there was no evidence of her intent to harm the United States. So, but you'll agree that a person can act with gross negligence or even act knowingly without possessing some additional specific intent. So which is it? Is it a lack of gross negligence that she had or a lack of intent?
In terms of my overall judgment about whether the case was worthy of prosecution, it's the lack of evidence to meet what I understand to be the elements of the crime, one, and two, a consideration of what would be fair with respect to how other people have been treated. Those two things together tell me, and nothing has happened that's changed my view on this, that no reasonable prosecutor would bring such a case. The specific intent question, yes, I agree that specific intent to harm the United States is a different thing than a gross negligence or willfulness.
So just one last question. You talked about Mary and Joe. And Mary and Joe would be disciplined at the FBI if they did what Hillary Clinton did. If Mary and Joe came to you and asked for a promotion immediately after being disciplined, would you give them that promotion?
Tough to answer that hypothetical. It would depend upon the nature of the conduct and what discipline had been imposed.
And what if they ever asked for a promotion that would give them management and control of cybersecurity of your agency and the secrets of your agency after they had done these things? Would you give them that promotion?
That's a question I don't want to answer.
All right.
The time of the gentleman has expired. The chair